Live from our studio audience, it's 5 More Minutes, Mom, with your hosts, Brielle and Guerlain, on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network.
Hello, and welcome to 5 More Minutes, Mom. I am your host, Brielle.
And I'm Guerlain.
And welcome to our first episode. Woohoo! Oh my gosh, it's our first episode.
Yeah.
Welcome. If you're joining us, at the bottom of the screen, we're going to put our social media handles so you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can follow the Empty the Bench Podcast Network because we're a part of that, and you can follow them too. I think also down there is my personal Instagram, Twitter handle, and yours as well. So
Right.
people can follow us if they think that we're interesting on our own,
Yeah, give that what the YouTubers say. Smash that follow button. Smash that subscribe button. Smash the like
It's
button.
smash the like button, I think, is what the kids say these
What the
days.
kids are saying.
Okay, all right, awesome. Okay, so it's our first episode, and today we are going to be talking about nostalgia. We're going to be talking about
Yes.
nostalgia and the shows that we watched as kids and kind of how they're all coming back, It's
Mm.
so interesting. Like
It's
I feel like
interesting with
every
the
other day
impact.
there's like a new reboot or a new reimagining.
Right. Like now, things are just and it's a bit of, you know, big corporations manipulation trying to cash in on that nostalgia,
Oh,
you
absolutely.
know.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, let's be completely honest. No one was asking for a Dumbo live action remake. The only reason that Disney did it is to extend their copyright.
Right.
May the Disney snipers not attack me. I'm wearing the merch, don't attack me. But it's true. That's why they did it. They did it to extend their copyright, and because no one was asking for it. No one wanted it. I mean, to be quite honest, no one wanted a live action, Lion King. The original was fine.
Right.
But I think it's so interesting because it kind of shows like the good way to bring something back and the bad way, like the good and the bad of nostalgia. Because
Mhm.
like where Disney is failing, I think like Nickelodeon is succeeding with like Blue's Clues
Yeah,
because
that is true.
I technically the newest season of Blue's Clues is not a reboot. It's just a continuation.
Mhm.
Because they didn't like change. They didn't act like Josh, who's the new host, is like he's the guy. It's always been him.
Mm.
Who's Steve? They're continuing it and they're acknowledging Steve and Joe. So it's more of a continuation, but they're modernizing it for more modern audiences. Like Josh has like a cell phone.
Right.
Um, but I think the reason that they have succeeded where I feel like those Disney reboots don't is because there's a level of care and love with that. There's a level of we're still doing this for children, we're still doing this to make a good show, and it just so happens that it's nostalgic for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's it. That's a good point.
Mhm.
With Disney, it's literally just it's the same thing, just with a fresh new coat of paint,
Yes,
basically.
exactly.
And as you just said, with the Blue's Clues continuation, it's a continuation. So instead of a handy dandy notebook, like you said, now it's a cell phone.
Well, no, he still uses the notebook, but he does have a cell
Ah,
phone, and instead of getting mail from mailbox, he gets like emails.
oh, that's cute. I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Well, it updated with the times. It's not. It's still technically the same thing. The spirit is still
Yes.
there, but now it's updated
Yeah.
for a brand new audience.
Yeah.
Disney, they don't update this stuff. It's just now it's live action. Look at
Mhm.
this realistic lion
Yeah.
talk. It looks so weird though. But it's voiced by Beyonce.
Yeah.
um, but it is interesting. Seeing impact unfold before your eyes, or like witnessing it. Um, with Blue's Clues when Steve did that social media thing saying, "Hey, it's been a
Yes.
while." That was really interesting to see how many people, how many chords were struck, how many people's heartstrings were struck just off of that
Yes.
alone.
Yes, and that I actually do really wanna talk about that. So
Mhm,
when I saw that TikTok where Steve was like, "Hey, how are you?" I was bawling. I was bawling. I was so it really it hit me. And I wanna talk about that because I think it's so interesting. Because I feel like our generation, more of the millennials who grew up in the '90s, our generation is really the only one that I think reacts to nostalgia this way.
mhm,
I mean, not that like our parents or people from the like Gen X or something are, don't reminisce on their childhoods and how great they were. But I feel like for us, the reason that millennials are always like, remember the 90s is because, and this is going to get a little like sad and depressing, but I think it's because that was the last time we felt like limitless or we felt optimistic. Because I feel like growing up when we did, everyone was telling us, you can do anything you want to do. You can be anything that you want to be
mhm,
because they were told that and they achieved it. My parents were told you can do whatever you want and they were able to do that. They were able to get jobs and, buy a house and get married and have kids and do everything they wanted to do. And not much changed. I don't mean that things didn't change, but technology wise, it wasn't a crazy leap. But in the 90s, there was such a leap in technology so quickly
mhm,
that we grew up. I remember growing up without cell phones and without computers, and
mhm,
then suddenly they were there. They were there, and we had them, and then we grew up into this world that we can't get jobs, we can't get houses. Dating is an absolute nightmare. It's getting more and more expensive to have kids, and it's getting harder to raise kids, to live in this world. And it's like, I don't blame us for wanting to go back to a time when Steve was there who told us we could do anything we wanted to do, and I believed him. Like, I don't blame us for wanting to remember the 90s, for hearing that Bear in the Big Blue House is now on Disney Plus, and we're watching it because it makes us happy. Like, of course it makes us happy.
mhm.
Bear in the Big Blue House is such a hopeful show. It's such a sweet show. And it reminds us of a youth where the biggest thing we had to worry about was like, our math homework and when we were 10, like,
Yeah, it's that wow, I never thought of it that way because that
yeah,
is true. Um,
yeah. It's
the
sad, but it's true. We can't, like, there's a saying like you can't ever go back, and that's
yeah,
absolutely true for everybody. But I think we definitely can't go back because the world is so different from when we were kids.
right,
Like, I remember, not everybody, but a lot of my friends when we were like in middle school, not middle school, elementary school, everyone had like a home computer,
mm,
and it was in like an office or like in the corner of your parents' bedroom, and you could only play on it for a certain amount of time, and you could only play like Jumpstart or
mm.
Roller Coaster Tycoon or like
Wow.
stuff like that. Like, it was very limiting, but it was so cool. And like your friend would like stand behind you and like watch you play on the computer.
Do you remember, the Blaster series? It was Reading Blaster, Math Blaster.
Maybe I feel like that sounds familiar. Yeah,
Those are
maybe.
so good. Those games are so
Yeah, I oh man, I love that stuff.
mm,
Um, but now it's like there's so much like media saturation and social media saturation because we didn't have that. We didn't have
right,
social media. And I think that's why our generation, and I think why we wanted to talk about this, like have this podcast, because it's nice to remember how simple and sweet and kind of wonderful things were. And obviously, like, every generation had its issues.
right.
Nobody's childhood was perfect, but you know, I think that's why we're so, I think, hung up on nostalgia as a generation, because it was like taken from us so fast, you know?
We were promised a world that we didn't get to see.
Absolutely.
We're
Yeah.
we're
And
only able to view it through media, and
yeah,
then, like, now that we're
exactly.
older, where is it, you know?
Yeah, and again, like, we saw that world disappearing in front of our eyes
Yeah.
because one day we were playing outside and the next day everybody had a cell phone. Like, you know, I mean, obviously it wasn't that fast, but like it was that fast. That's what's
It
so
was, yeah.
crazy.
Because let's see. So there is a 4-year gap between us, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Roughly
Yeah, about.
three or four. So, um, I want to say in 2007, I got my real first cell phone. It wasn't really mine, but my
Mhm.
parents said it was mine. And there was a Razor, those flip phones.
You
Yeah,
had a razor?
not really, but
I'm
yeah.
jealous. Oh, I
But
wanted that pink razor so bad.
people were fiending for the Razor. But yeah, that's 2007. 3 years, or like roughly 3 years after that, 2010, we're on the iPhone. Like it
Yeah.
happened, now it's Androids, now it's iPhones, now apps and all this. YouTube was roughly just introduced 2005, and now
Mhm.
it's showing to be a big thing in the 2010s.
Yeah.
It really, our generation, or like people around our age, millennials, we're very unique um
Yeah. It's a
in terms
very
of that
unique, I
experience.
think, generation because we grew up without like internet and social media and we grew up with it. So
Yeah.
it's not like Gen X where they had like, you know, those big honking computers that they could everything was black with the green letters.
Hmm.
And it's not like Gen Z where it's like they grew up with iPads shoved in their face, you know. It's a very interesting position to be in, and I think that's why we cling to our childhood so much. Why, you know, when I heard that Bear in the Big Blue House was on Disney Plus, I was like, "Oh gosh, I wanna watch it right now, but I'm in Disney,
Get to
Oh
relive
gosh,
it.
why do I have to be in Disney World? I can't watch Bear in the Big Blue House."
We can watch it now.
I can, and I do, honestly, it holds up so
Mm,
well. It holds up so well. Like, it yes, it's educational and it definitely is, but it's not super annoying about it. And I
mhm.
think the puppeteering is really well done. It's really good puppeteering and the characters are so endearing and wonderful and you know, I've been watching like the original Blue's Clues because it's on because my sister has Paramount Plus and like I share all the streaming services with like 15 other people. Um
Shh, don't say
don't
that.
tell Netflix. What? I mean, they're all mine. I pay for all of them. Um but I'm watching the original Blue's Clues, and that holds up really well too. Like
Mhm.
obviously, it's not super topical, so you don't have to worry about like anachronisms, like oh, they're using like the super old phone, ha ha ha. But it, it just you can tell with these shows that a lot of love and care went into it. Like you were saying earlier about the new Blue's Clues, a lot of love and care went into these original shows that the people making them wanted to make something that would last, that would be able to help children and entertain children for years to come. And I think that's why, even now, as someone who's like 30, you know, almost 30, I still like the shows from like, you know, genuinely like the shows, not even in the like, oh, remember when, you know.
And shows back then, well, not all of them, obviously, but a lot of them back then really strive to teach you something, or
Yes.
to nurture you.
Yes.
Um, it wasn't back then. What shows like Blue's Clues, Nick Jr., that whole channel block.
Mhm.
It wasn't something that parents could just put on to uh, distract their children.
Yeah.
It was actually like you put it on. Like, sure, you might be thinking that distract my kids so they're not running around, but you was actually learning something. Like the way I remember when I first started kindergarten, the teacher called all of us to the carpet. I guess it was story time or something. And out of all the kids, it was maybe 15 of us. I was the only one that sat down crisscross applesauce, because Steve, every time he sat down, whenever it was like a floor level type of shot, he was crisscross applesauce, and I imitated that. And the teacher pointed me out. He's like, "Hey, does anyone see Gerlin sitting?" Because kids
Yeah.
got their legs out and whatnot. Does anyone see Gerlin sit like that? It'll make it neater, make it tighter. Because you got some people sitting off the carpet because there's no space. But if
Mhm.
you crisscross applesauce, there'll be space. And just stuff like that is just it sticks with you as a kid. Now today, and I'm not too familiar with a lot of preschool programming today, but when I see small things like Coco Melon,
Yeah, I mean that I don't know if that's traditional media. I think that started on YouTube.
it's very popular, but you
I
watch
know,
it,
and it's oh god, I've only seen little bits and pieces, and even
it's
those
like
little bits and
crack.
pieces, it's so colorful and bright, and
Mhm.
not in a good way.
Yeah.
I'm so worried these kids are gonna end up like crazy overstimulated.
It's like shot after shot after shot after shot after it doesn't give you time to
Yeah,
absorb anything. So it's for
yeah,
yeah, for us to it makes sense why we really hold on to those things. And
yeah.
this
Also,
is
just
also
to point out, like,
Mhm.
Gerlin and I are not childhood, like, education or behavior experts. Like, we're just
No,
talking about, like, us. We're not trying to judge any parents.
no, no.
Listen, you do what you gotta do. It's hard to be a parent. We're not trying to do that.
That's why
I
I'm
wanna
not
put that
one.
disclaimer.
Yeah, yeah. We're far from being what's the word? Eligible, qualified. We're far from being
Qualified, yeah.
qualified. Uh, but with it's interesting today seeing the impact. Small things like uh how now on social media, a lot of us, people around our age group from 25 to 30, we're all sharing that nostalgia together now and without the big corporations meddling in. It's
Mhm.
just natural. Like for example, the whole Adult Swim trend. That was very interesting.
Yeah.
'Cause and it was and what was so endearing about it is that Adult Swim responded, and their response was, "Oh my god," it almost brought tears to my eyes, and they said, "Wow, for 20 plus years, we thought we were just talking to ourselves. We're happy to see that our message was reciprocated." I was like, "Ooh," like,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and I think that's, like I think that's the point of when nostalgia works. I think when it's, like, community led, I think is when it really works
Yeah.
because then you can feel the heart of it, as opposed to that corporate dollar and, you know yeah, I like that trend. That was a really cool trend. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I remember when I go to a sleepover, and after we'd watch like whatever movie we'd watch and ate our popcorn and whatever, we'd all like get into our little sleeping bags or under the comforters, and we'd put on whatever Cartoon Network show was on late at night, and we'd like
Mhm,
wait for Adult Swim so we could watch Inuyasha or something, or like
mhm,
Cowboy Bebop, and we'd like wait. It would be like Toonami, and then it would go to, Adult Swim, and we'd be like,
mhm.
"Ooh, Adult Swim."
That's
We'd
what
watch Inuyasha.
do you remember those bumpers where it was literally, just adults jumping in the pool, and it'll be like, "Kids without the
Yes!
pool, now it's Adult Swim."
Yes, I
Uh,
do remember those bumpers before they were the black ones with the white text. Yeah, I do
right,
remember that. Oh, that was a long time ago.
yeah,
But
Shawn
yeah,
Michaels.
I think that's why, like, we're responding to having all these shows, like, on these streaming services now because it's like we can watch them and like transport ourselves back to our childhoods and to a
Mhm,
time when we were happier and felt more confident in ourselves. And that isn't to say that like there aren't modern children's shows that are bad because honestly some of them are A plus. Like I could talk about Bluey. I love Bluey. I unapologetically adore Bluey. Do you
that's
know
on,
Bluey?
it's on Nick Jr.?
No, it is on Disney.
Oh, wow, okay.
It's an Australian show
Mm,
that Disney has on their channel, and it's about a family of what are those dogs? Healer dogs. They're like Australian blue healers. And basically they live in like a dog world. And the episodes I think are like 12 minutes. They're like half episodes.
mm,
And it's an educational show, not in that it teaches you letters and numbers, but more it teaches you like emotional intelligence. Like and honestly, the way that it has captured not only the way that children behave and talk, but the way that, like, parents behave and parents talk and honestly, a lot of people have said about Bluey that it's a show for parents, not for kids, because of
mm.
the way that it talks about families and things. It's so endearing. I love that show, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about how much I love Bluey. But that's what I mean, like, we're not trying to, like, shit on modern children's television, but I think there is something very special and very magical about the TV shows that we had growing up, you know?
Mm.
I think
Yeah.
there's something very time in a bottle about it.
Oh yeah. Like watching this is something about for me personally, watching old stuff from 2002. Like
Mm.
watching old commercials, seeing old WWE matches,
Yeah.
the way it was shot and stuff. Um for some reason I specifically think Hot Wheels because that was so popular
Yep.
back then. Yeah, you go back, you go on YouTube, look up for anything from 2002. It has or from the early 2000s in general, late 90s. It really has a certain aura to it. Like it just gives off.
Yeah, it really does. It was such an interesting time, I think, for television, because especially because in the 90s and in the 2000s, I think that was really the first time that children were given like their own thing,
Mm,
because like if I'm getting the dates right, which maybe I am, maybe I'm not, Nickelodeon as a channel started in the late 80s,
mm,
and so did the Disney Channel. And before that, there really wasn't shows for children. There were like Saturday morning cartoons and things like that, but like there wasn't a dedicated space for children. And then Nickelodeon comes in and it's a channel built for kids, by kids, kids
mhm.
decide. And it was like a revelation. Suddenly there was stuff that was just for us. And I feel like our generation was really the first one to get that, to
Yeah,
have that given to us. Like, here's the Disney Channel. It's all your favorite shows and movies, and they're just for you. You don't have to worry about, waking up super early to watch something and then it goes to the boring news for your parents. Now it's like a whole channel all day, every day with stuff for you. And I think that's so crazy when you think about that.
right.
Like, that was, like, when it happened, and now it's kind of, like, expected, like, "Oh, well, of course there's channels just for kids, of course there's PBS and, Discovery Kids and The Hub and, this and that, and there's, like, 15 different Disney channels now, and there's, like, 3 different Nickelodeons," but back then it was really only Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, and Cartoon Network, PBS Kids in the morning and the afternoon, and then it went to, like, regular adult PBS, um, and so it was, like, there was all this time to fill, all this space to fill. It was open. There were so many ideas that people had and they could be made because
Yeah.
they had a whole channel. So they had to fill it with something. Let's make a show about a blue dog that solves, easy mysteries. Let's make a show about a magic school bus and teach kids science. Let's make, a show about a bear who lives in a blue house and teaches emotional understanding and basic concepts. Let's have a show about a big frog on an island, with like a fun family. Like, it was just also a very big time for puppets.
At that time, yeah.
Yeah, which I like because I'm a very big Muppets Jim Henson girl. Like
Mm.
a lot of puppets, which I always liked. But it was so open, and I think that's another reason why we're so nostalgic because it was just an explosion, and there was so much to watch and so much to learn and see and listen to.
Yeah, and competition was really healthy back then too. Like
Yeah.
if if you wasn't on Cartoon Network, say there was a show you didn't like, you could go to Disney Channel. And I could list it off. Like Disney had American Dragon, Jake Long, Kim Possible, The
Mhm.
Proud Family. If you wasn't feeling those shows, go to Cartoon Network. They got Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls, Courage the Cowardly Dog. If you're into the spooky stuff,
Yeah.
if you're not feeling that, go to Nickelodeon. We got Rugrats, Hey Arnold, Cat Dog for people who are into Cat Dog.
Yeah.
Um, Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah.
But the
SpongeBob, I mean,
SpongeBob. The
yeah,
competition was so good back then. Like, yeah, you could see the effort. You could see the time that was taken to really develop these shows.
yeah, it was just an explosion of creativity, and, I don't know, I don't wanna say necessarily that that's gone down or anything, but I think it's definitely lesser because there's less space to fill?
Yeah, and people aren't really watching television anymore. It's all streaming now.
Yeah, I mean, but they make television for streaming, I mean,
Yeah, but not as much. It's just because so much when I when I said the competition was good, it was good. Like the bumpers, people neglect on the bumpers. The bumpers are important. When Cartoon Network had a whole city where the characters lived in, that was great. But again, back to social media. What do we imitate now? What do we share our experiences with? The whole Disney Channel thing, to drawing the Mickey
The
Mouse.
Mickey Mouse,
You're
yeah,
watching Disney Channel, right?
yeah.
And Nickelodeon with oh my god, Nickelodeon also had really good bumpers where like the splat would go all over the place, and remember the Christmas bumpers where Jimmy would interact with SpongeBob and SpongeBob would interact with the Fairly
Yes,
Odd Parents, and
yes.
and, and they were whatchamacallit, claymation. That was really good.
Yes, I
The
do
bumper.
remember that, I do. Yeah, there was a lot of care put into not only the shows, but the stuff around the shows.
Hmm.
Um, and you know what also I think it is? It's because, you know, they obviously they had to have advertisers, so they had to have commercials, but I think they were like, maybe we don't have too many commercials, so we need to have something to cut that up. And so they had the bumpers like Face. Do you remember Face?
Oh,
My
Faye.
favorite one was with the curly straw, like where he like
Hmm.
was drinking juice in the curly straw.
I remember
But
it
like,
all
isn't that crazy that I remember that?
because it was memorable. It
Yeah,
put it made an imprint on you.
yeah, and yeah, it's just like these places, these TV channels, as weird as it sounds, were safe havens for us.
Yeah.
Like we knew when we went onto those channels that we wouldn't get too many commercials, but the commercials we would get would all be for fun toys.
Hmm.
We get great TV shows that we loved that were maybe entertaining, maybe not. And we'd get Face, or we'd get Cartoon Network City, or we'd get, you're watching Disney Channel with the light up. So it was such a wonderful time. And I know that nostalgia is definitely painting it. I know that nostalgia is kind of giving me rose colored glasses, but can you blame us?
Especially when you go back, not all, but a lot of those shows still hold up today.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, like going back and watching Bear in the Big Blue House, Blue's Clues, PB&J Otter, like they're still really fun. Some of the voices, little grating. Some of the voices are a little grating,
Yeah.
but ultimately they're still so funny. They're still very sweet and endearing. Like they do hold up, and I so like, can you really blame us for wanting to like remember the '90s?
Right.
Yeah, it's just so interesting to think about how our generation handles nostalgia versus like our parents, because like my parents have nostalgia for when they were kids. Why wouldn't they? It was the late 60s and the 70s. Like that was a cool time to be a kid. But I feel like they don't think about it the same way that we do. Like you and I could literally have a conversation where we quote SpongeBob back and forth because we
Hmm.
loved it so much and we watched it. My parents couldn't do that. My mom will be like, "Oh, I used to love HR Puff and stuff. Like that was such a fun show." And I'd be like, "Okay, tell me about an episode." And she'll be like, Like
Right.
she knows that she likes it. She has fond memories of it, but it's not like she can recall it the way that we can. It's very interesting.
And I feel that goes back to the way technology was,
Mm.
because we were basically privileged to be able to go back before the whole nostalgic boom even happened for us.
Yes,
You
yeah,
know.
that's something that I didn't even know. So I don't remember who I was talking to, but they were saying that like back in the '80s, when you turn on the radio, it was just '80s music.
Mm,
Like they didn't have like they had like an oldies station, but it wasn't like today, like when you can just turn on a radio station and they play like songs from the '80s, '90s, 2000s, and today. Like they didn't do that. So if
mm,
you were, wanting to like watch a movie from your childhood, you were kind of shit out of luck unless you happen to have it on you. Maybe if VHSs existed at that point, but like it wasn't available to them. So I think that's another part of it, because for us, I think so much is available for us to look back on and watch where it wasn't before. Like when my
definitely.
dad was a kid in the '70s, he didn't like he wasn't able to watch movies from like the '50s. Like he couldn't do that. There weren't obviously like video stores then, and
Mm,
they would occasionally bring a movie back to the theaters for like an anniversary and you can maybe watch it. But other than that, you just had to see what was in the theaters. That was it.
Yeah.
So I think that also is why we're able to cling to nostalgia the way that we are. It's because it's all available to us to look at.
And I remember when YouTube really became a thing, it was available. The first thing I did was look up, even this is 2005, but specifically what I was looking up was this Usher performance that he did at the BT Awards the prior year. It was only 2004, just a year ago. But they don't really put that on replay often. So first thing I did, I looked up was Usher 2004 performance in 2005, and just that alone, that started the whole. Let's go back. Let's
Yeah.
watch what we liked back then, even though it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
just it's so crazy when you really think about what's available to us, and I think that's
yeah,
why nostalgia is so powerful for our generation because we're kind of the first ones to be able to do that, to be
yeah.
nostalgic in that way, you know?
It's very interesting stuff, man.
All right, I think we're done. I think we did it. We've reached our time limit.
Hey, I thought that was pretty good. We could
I
have
do
kept going for like
too.
another 30.
Yeah. Talk for 3 more hours.
3 more hours.
Um, okay, so at the bottom of the screen, we're going to be listing the social media again, both for 5 More Minutes Mom and the ETV network, as well as for ourselves.
Mm,
Please give us a follow. When you watch this video, please comment, like, let us know what you think. Tell us any of the things that you really are nostalgic about. Tell us about your favorite show from childhood. We'd love to hear it. We'd love to kind of see what everyone's feeling, everyone's thinking. You can catch our shows Saturdays at 11 a.m. on youtube.com/ETV. Our next episode comes out next week.
So stay tuned and let's start a conversation together.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.